Super. Right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Becky. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the English Association, and I'm so pleased to be hosting our session this afternoon. A quick bit of info about the EA, if you're not familiar with our work. We're a learned society and a subject association, and we were founded in 1906 to promote, support, and defend the discipline of English studies. We cover all stages of education, from primary and early years through to secondary and further education, to higher education and beyond. And we cover all parts of the discipline across language, linguistics, literature, and creative writing. Events like tonight's are made possible by the fantastic contribution of our volunteer speakers. So thank you so much to our three speakers this evening for giving of your time and your ideas so generously. Also, our members make it possible to keep these events free and open to all by paying their membership fees. So if you would like to contribute to the national conversation about English and help support our discipline, please do consider joining us. It costs just £53 to support our events and campaigning work for a whole year, and you get access to a range of member benefits, including online access to all our journals. So enough from me. It's now my pleasure to hand over to tonight's speakers for our discussion, and I will hand over now to Bob. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Becky, and thank you very much all for coming. We're still getting people coming into the room. We're expecting a few more. I can already see some familiar faces. I can see Sarah there. Hello, Sarah. Lovely to see you. And there will be some people, I'm sure, whose schools I've visited, and that's great. And there'll also be some people who haven't a clue who I am or what Opening Doors is all about. So a brief introduction from me first, and then two fantastic speakers, Usama Jabin and Matt Shepherd. I will be handing over to them and asking them the odd question or two, and then they're going to talk about the influence, impact, and effect of opening doors to ambitious English in their schools. Because always it's one thing to talk about ideas, evidence, theory, but really it's all about the practice that matters, because that's the bit that matters so much to your pupils and gives you such a big boost in your job. And I'm always saying that really that the whole challenge agenda is good for teachers, because I've just lost count of the number of messages I get from people excited about what their pupils have written, and that's good for us, but of course it's good for them. So I will run through a few slides before having a chat, which I hope you'll really enjoy, with two great practitioners, and I'll tell you a little bit about the whole sort of Opening Doors project. I've been a long time in education, you can probably tell that. 23 years a teacher and many, many years traveling around nationally, sometimes internationally. And I've written 6 books, the Opening Doors series. And the idea, very much as the series has grown, is that we're trying to help you with work which pitches high, but which includes all pupils and has stepping stones through from primary to secondary. So, if you like, it's normalizing a challenging English curriculum. But how do you do it? That's the big question. So we're going to hope to. All we can do is introduce it today, but that's what we're going to hope to do. So I'm going to share a screen, and all being well, we'll be able to get this going. I've got the usual problem of getting the slideshow. It's just got hidden where I've got to press the slideshow. Okay, go away screen. No, we don't want that. Get there in a second. Okay, I'm going to try a stop share and let's go in again. It did it a little bit in practice just now, and it's to do with, oh, there we are. I think we're there. I think, no, we're not. Yes, we are there. Can you see that okay, Becky?
Yep, perfect.
Brilliant. Okay. So there's the details at @BobCox_SFE if you would like to follow on X and find out more. Do contact me afterwards on email. Definitely look at the website, which has got loads of free resources and the books. So searchingforexcellence.co.uk. Our latest book is Opening Doors to Ambitious Primary English, which is this is different. This is in chapter form, and it's theory and evidence and case studies from across the country, which I think you'll really enjoy. And this foreword is by a terrific head teacher. You may know her. She may even be logging on right now, called Sonia Thompson, and she's just wonderful and so committed to excellence for all. And I love her wording from the foreword. Exposing our children to high quality texts is like giving them a gift. Once unwrapped, the opening up of their imagination through the power of words and illustrations is a sight to behold. For me, this literary gifting should never be the preserve of the favoured few. I'm wholly convinced that it must be available to every child, regardless of the circumstance. It just sums it up for me. It's a literary gifting that we're talking about, and we're talking about picture books, we're talking about children's literature and classic texts, making a dynamic combination, and texts from the past linking with texts from the present and then going across the globe. But it should be absolutely for everyone. And I think all our schools have that in common, that the equity and excellence agenda is huge. And there are so many different types of schools on the Opening Doors schools list. So the Blue Book is the new book. The quality writing books are the ones that won the Educational Resource Award Best Book Award in 2017. And the richer curriculum books are the ones that have probably become very, very coherent in terms of mentioning things like concepts, which I'll mention again in a minute, and a coherent curriculum. The firstborn was Opening Doors to Famous Poetry and Prose, which is Key Stage 2 to 3, very much heritage text, but not entirely the text that you might expect. Always some surprises. And there are 80 units across the first 5 books, and then the new book has become the lead book because that's got the chapter format, the evidence, the theory, the case studies. And do email me to go on the mailing list. And eventually, I hope some of you logging on today may wish your schools to become Opening Doors schools and go on the network. So this is a link which goes through my website to the network. And, you know, we get schools visiting each other. We get schools writing articles. Got 2 teachers today contributing. All sorts of things are coming up, and we're growing the whole time. I can just mention some key principles before starting our discussion, and I hope they'll interest you. One is absolutely going deeper with knowledge, but making sure that the learning strategies are there too to unlock and unpick the knowledge and doing it in steps. So, for example, the visual literacy in Opening Doors has been very strong. And I'm proud to say my illustrator throughout is my daughter, Vicky Cox. She's now Mrs. Vicky Bravo, but we'll keep the name Cox for the books. And just imagine, well, whatever age the pupil is at, being able to use an illustration like that to say, what puzzles you? How can you link any images together? What do certain images remind you of? Why do you think it's drawn as a circle? What do you notice about the figures in the foreground? And so on. Bigger questions like what mood is does the picture remind you of? And that can link you in with slivers of text which are connected with a concept. We've said again and again to schools, based on our coaching, based on what we've read, based on what the schools want, why are you doing a text? Why are you doing a poem? Why don't you teach a concept? So, by teaching an epic style, um, we think, we know, because we're seeing it before our eyes and getting the feedback from schools, you can go deeper. Look at this lovely bit of language here. I'll tell you which book it's from in a moment. Just us, a pocket of people in a pocket of a world that's small as a marble. We're tiny and we're everything and we are wild. That's a sliver of text. That's another chunking stage of knowledge. A pocket of people in a pocket of a world. The meaning is in the reading. Repeat the readings, teaching fluency and teaching comprehension simultaneously, and teaching about an epic style, even though it's just a sliver of text. And it's from this beautiful book by Katja Belen called October. October features in Opening Doors to Ambitious Primary English. We might move on. Same book. Tonight we howl at the star-dusted sky. We throw our voices and shape them and mix them and mold them like clay. We can stretch our sounds so that they reach the very tops of our tallest trees and down to the secret-filled earth. We howl at the star-dusted sky. We throw our voices. We stretch our sounds. Keep echoing the reading. Get them to echo it. And what you've got here, fantastic oracy and learning dialogue possibility, is quality text to quality writing, because they're beginning the understanding they need to write their own little piece of epic prose. More spelling, punctuation, and grammar can be in context. More word power can be in the context of the challenging text. I've mentioned fluency, and of course, so many more stages can build in comprehension strategies, and I'll mention link reading in a minute. This is an opportunity for coherence. And goodness me, I've seen so many bitty English lessons where, today's lesson is about noun phrases, today's lesson is about vocabulary, but it has no link with the beauty of the story or the poem. I think it's Sir Michael Morpurgo's always talking about story, story, story. We lead our lives through narratives. Every day has a story. Our whole minds are linked to narrative, in real life, in what we see, in what we read. It's something pupils and students will latch onto very well. So I'd very much recommend taking a look at Opening Doors and thinking about how it can help with coherence. English is the subject, literacy, the outcomes. English is a powerful, broad, deep, and very well established subject. Language, literature, and literacy together. Okay, I'm going to have to just come out and go in because I've got stuck. It does happen sometimes. It just gets a bit stuck on the on here. Okie doke, that should be all right. There we go. And I want to mention link reading, because some time ago I abandoned the phrase wider reading. The reason was, well, probably years ago, I never did all the wider reading on my college list. And when I was teaching, I used to send children who'd finished to the library and ask them to do some wider reading. The more I thought about wider, the more it's great, but it sounds like an extra. So I've used in my writings, and I've recommended to schools, and I know many of them have taken it up, that if you call whole text reading link reading, you're emphasizing that it links with the curriculum, and that it's an expectation that more whole text reading will follow. There are many stages to do with the epic style teaching that I cannot go over today. But when more has been learnt, look at the other possibilities for reading whole texts, and they've all got a feel of the epic about them. One of them there is a picture book, The Lost Thing. Another is a classic, Journey to the Centre of the Earth. So the other two are very recent and very different, but both about worlds where there's conflict between groups, classes, if you like. Children of the Stone City may not be quite as well known as Tiger, but is equally as good. Very, very different. They would make a fantastic link. See, it's getting me talking about books, 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 and they've all got that epic feel. Same thing's happening in classrooms. You learn about the epic and then you read more epics. And what about Tennyson? And what about Langston Hughes? Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Yes, there are opportunities to read vastly different styles, but still epic. And for teachers to be able to begin that journey of helping children understand what an epic style is. And I believe you can only understand it by reading a lot. I don't believe you can understand it by being given a definition. And I'm sure my own understanding is still, you know, developing today. Paul Laurence Dunbar's Sympathy. I know, I'll just read the first bit. It's famous. I know what the cage bird feels, alas, when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass. Quality text to quality writing. Lexi from Hartlepool. I know how the caged snake feels, alas, when the dehydrated grass dances in the soft breeze, when the sun shines onto the waterhole below, and the crackling bush's leaves start to grow. When the welcoming cool rain hits the crisp, thirsty trees. I know how the caged snake feels. A big principle of opening doors: quality text reading, reading, links with quality teaching into quality writing. If you haven't done the depth of reading, the improvement in writing is hard. And there's Vicky's illustration for the cage bird. And we've got lots of free things on my website, including free videos. This is by my colleague Leah Crawford, who wrote the appropriate unit in Richer English 10 to 13. And there's a free 15-minute lesson there's 13 of them that people find really useful. But it can start young. It can start young. Look at Marty Woodlouse from Jonah. The woodlouse was very crawly. He crawled right up my arm. Some kids are scared of these bugs, though he didn't do me any harm. It's very hard to pick them up. They can curl into a ball. They could fall off anyone's hands. They could hide behind a wall. My stripy woodlouse was very cute. Marty was his name. I had released him when it started to rain. My mum didn't want him living in our house. Our home is just for people and not for my woodlouse. Jonah is in year one. Jonah is in year one. And like the picture, that came from Christina Rossetti, being used in Key Stage 1. Hurt no living thing, ladybird nor butterfly, nor moth with dusty wing, nor cricket chirping cheerily, nor grasshopper so light of leap, nor dancing gnat, nor beetle fat, nor harmless worms that creep. And we're teaching mood, the mood of hurt no living thing. We're not doing a poem. And things like the dusty wing contribute to the mood, the chirping cheerily, the beetle fat, the gnat, the discussions, the spelling, the alliteration, the feel, the sound, they're all contributing to the mood. So this is the beginning of pupils learning how technique in English contributes to meaning and is part of something bigger, and prevents a slightly less effective journey towards labeling of parts. This is a verb, this is a metaphor, done it. Done it, but probably not understood. Within the umbrella of a concept, the coherence is powerful. And there's Jonah. I'll move on quickly now so we can get our discussion going. But you might like this one too. These are moon seeds from H.G. Wells' First Men in the Moon. I've been promoting a lot of interest on my travels this term. And we can zoom in on, again, that slow sliver, the bundle-like buds swelled and strained and opened with a jerk, thrusting out a coronet of red sharp tips, spreading a whirl of tiny spiky brownish leaves that lengthened rapidly, lengthened visibly even as we watched. Incredible extract from a whimsical novel written, I think, around about 1901, and before the Wright brothers had even flown an aeroplane. It's produced some fantastic work from children who really, really enjoy it under these concepts. I'm going to jump more H.G. Wells um, and just go to some pupils writing on the moon seeds. How can I describe the thing I saw from Coastlands in Pembroke? My head swirled like millions of ballerinas dancing and leaping gracefully. My eyes fixed upon the incredible sight, I wiped away the misty windows so I could take a closer look. Was it life? Look at that, millions of ballerinas. Isn't that wonderful? And I'm going to just move on quickly. There's the three of the Key Stage 2 to 3 books. It's just wonderful what children are coming out with, and they are stepping stones into Key Stage 3 and beyond. Plenty of evidence that some children are not taking to literature quickly, not enjoying English as much as they might and as much as we want them to. Well, I'm going to make my case that one reason is they need more prior knowledge in primary in small steps, as I've just been able to illustrate, so that if they encounter the Ancient Mariner in Key Stage 3, it's a joy. It's a joy. And look at Paul Murphy's school, Ravensworth, on the left. Look at what he's done to boost reading. You know that's not computer generated. Go to Ravensworth School in Mottingham. You will see the spines of those books. Everyone who walks into Ravensworth School knows that it's a school that loves reading. And that's the wonderful Mulgrave School, Mulgrave Primary, I wanted to give a mention to, who've done so much to promote opening doors and top level challenge for every single pupil in Woolwich Arsenal area of Greenwich. Margaret Meeks, if we want to see what lessons have been learned from the text children read, we have to look for them in what they write. Wonderful. And plenty of evidence in the first book. I'm going to come back to overviews very quickly at the end because I think we need to move to the discussion. So I hope that at least has given a flavour of, go through my website, searchingforexcellence.co.uk, to get back to all of it. So can I now introduce, first of all, from Somerville School, it's a bit like being a star, Usama, isn't it? You're introduced to Usama Jabin. She has just been leading some terrific English work in Birmingham. So over to you. And I want to really just say to you, I know that along with a lot of schools, that you adapt opening doors. And perhaps I should make it clear that opening doors is not a package and not a set package. It's about principles and strategies. And I hope that came across just in that brief introduction. How have you adapted what you heard from me when I came to your school? And I first came way back during a lockdown online, or just before a lockdown. And then you invited me back last term. How have you adapted to suit the needs of your Birmingham school?
So the biggest thing that I'm going to say with the open doors is I felt like it could be implemented quite easily into whatever sort of scheme that you're using in your school if you are using a particular scheme. So for example, at our school, we started Talk for Writing. We've done it for about 7 years. We adapted it to suit the needs of our children, like you would with any sort of thing that you take up that's new, and found that there was still something missing from the children's work. Yes, they were able to imitate and innovate and invent a story. However, the quality of the writing just wasn't there. Then obviously I came across your work and I thought, oh my gosh, this looks like it's at university level because I've done an English degree myself and we're analyzing text and how can this be inclusive for all children, not just your greater depth children, because initially it was what I was looking for was greater depth and how could I push, because I saw high quality text, challenging children, and straight away came to my mind, oh, maybe greater depth, this is going to be for that. But actually when I read into it, it is something that's supposed to be inclusive for all children and I feel that it really is. I mean, a couple of years back, it came into like ensuring with reading that it was people just a lot of there's a lot of research that went into whole class guided reading and the impact and that it would the importance of having exposure for all children, not just your higher ability children, and ensuring that everyone is exposed to the same level of challenge. And I thought, hang on a minute, well then why can't we do this with writing? So then what we did, I came across some of the texts, the units of work in the opening doors stuff, and I found that actually it's not just about teaching the children how to write a story or how to write a poem. It's about digging deeper within those layers and actually analyzing the text. And I think that's the biggest thing, because the audience and the purpose and the effect really comes into it. What made it easy for our school as well was, and teachers, I mean, it's going to take time for teachers to come on board. Not all teachers come on board straight away. However, when you see the impact of it, it actually reduces, I felt, like the teacher workload, because everything is taught through that particular extract that you pick. I mean, just to emphasize as well, like, because they are texts that are, some of them are classical texts, and you don't always get the time to complete a book from cover to end. With this, it's about understanding why you're picking a particular extract from that, and you are literally opening the door for children to then go away and say, actually, I want to go read that book. So, we studied one of the units, Ghost Mystery for Flats and Low. Now, there is never any time in my mind I would have ever thought I was going to be teaching that to children. But actually, once we opened up that door, our children really produced like masses of like really good quality work, and it was because we were able to teach the vocabulary through it, the grammar, the punctuation, but understanding the purpose and effect of it. And like you said, the important thing about picking a concept, so understanding that you pick a particular theme and you say, how does the writer sort of create that impact and that effect? So like we picked out a quote. So in, for example, Talk for Writing, I would have probably usually said, okay, let's look at some of the senses that are within that text and pick out examples of that, and not really done anything with it. But what this pushed me to do then was to look at the impact of that. So if, for example, there was the use of auditory sound, so it was click, click, a scraping noise, whistle of the wind. What was the impact of that? Why did the writer use that? Moving then on to a visual. So there was a stealthy shadow, there was a light burning faintly. What was the impact of that? And actually, it really, really supported the children's sort of understanding the purpose and effect of writing. And it was visible then in the work that they produced.
Did you get any of the pupils sort of, oh, I can't do this, or were there any panic moments?
And I never ever felt that once, honestly. And this was, we taught this to all children of all abilities within the whole year group, in that year group. And this is not just year six, we taught it it started as low as reception, because we used the images as well. Lower down, you use that picture, zooming in, zooming out, understanding that pick a picture that's purposeful, like one that you can get more out of. So like understanding, like first ask the wider picture, what do you see? Oh, okay, but like you said, why is there a curve? What can you see beyond that? And it's about digging beneath those layers and getting children to kind of understand that. And actually, once I felt like when we did that unit, when I moved on to something else, automatically, not myself, as feedback from teachers as well, they started saying they started thinking like that. So it was about, hang on, what do we want to get out of this text? Can we talk about the grammar, the punctuation, and even the comprehension side of it? We don't need to go to several different resources that are not linked. And it then supports like all the thing with the cognitive overload, because your children are coming back to that again and again and again. We know cognitive overload is such a big thing in schools. And we kept saying, well, why are children not retaining things? And actually, when it came to the end of the unit, they had retained it because everything was done around that text, that particular taster graph that we looked at.
It just sounds so. You explained it so well. I mean, it just sounds. It just sounds exciting, and that's something I get, from other schools. It's certainly not easy, and not easy to spread to others. But that feeling of excitement is very important, I think, for all our schools and our teachers. That leads to the enjoyment. They're all linked, aren't they? The buzz, the excitement, and the feeling that this is a special lesson, and that challenge. I mean, do you think challenge is becoming normal in Somerville these days in
Yeah, I
English
mean,
following this?
the challenge is there for every child because, like I said, I mean, at the moment we're using your units of work that you've suggested in that. And as teachers become confident over time, I'm hoping, we can go away and pick our own extracts and think about how we're using them. But it's at the moment we're trying to build that confidence using the work that you've put forward. Um, but the challenge is definitely always there. And I think like the fact that we have the options of the link reading, the ideas of having
Mm.
link reading is amazing because when we looked at the Flaxman low text, we looked at the concept of tension and how tension is shown through a particular extract to the extract that we were looking at. But then we compared it with Dracula, and we picked another extract, and we used like a Venn diagram, and we said, okay, well, yes, tension is shown in this text, but it's also shown in this extract. But compare it. How has this writer done it? How has another writer done it? Because obviously, there's so many different ways tension can be shown. Um,
Mm.
and it really
It's
pushed it
just,
through
it's
the room because
just
then what they did was when they went away, they took ideas from both authors and the extracts that we had looked at and kind of
yeah,
embedded that in their own writing. So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's great. You to link in what you're saying with, some of the findings from cognitive science. I
Yeah,
think what you're saying there is there's more chance that the pupils remember and understand tension, and they
exactly.
take that because that formed a schema in the mind, and they take that on. So the next teacher can say, "I think you learnt quite a lot about tension in a particular setting, in a particular poem." More chance that it jumps out of the memory. And I think that's something I'm just picking up on more and more. Time being as it is, I better go on to Matt. Do you want to say anything else, Uzama, now, or should I go on to Matt?
That's all. I mean, people can put their questions and whatever it is in the chat, and hopefully, we can
Okay. Well, thank you so
sort that.
much.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
thank you. Matt Shepherd is in charge of all sorts of things, but English, teaching and learning at Our Ladies Primary in. I think are you actually in Dartford, Kent,
Yes.
or
Yeah,
yeah?
Dartford. Yeah.
And so we've gone here from Birmingham. The wonders of online. We've gone from Birmingham to Dartford, and I've actually Matt's school have had face-to-face online sessions, but then Matt has led in his way how he wishes, and I'm just going to ask him now how he's been able to plot that journey again, adapting for Our Ladies Primary, a very different school. And I think that's the way it should be. You adapt big principles and strategies to fit the context you're in. So over to you, Matt, to see all about how you've been getting on.
Yeah, so we have very much taken on try to take on those principles and look to think about how we would then go about planning this across our whole school. And over the last year or so, I've been sitting down with our staff, and we've been planning out our units and planning it so that there's that progression across. And we've been thinking about the concepts that you mentioned earlier on, and really trying to discuss with staff and plan with them about how we will use that concept to include a range of different texts, and plotting those link reading texts we're going to use, and thinking really kind of trying to, as you say, make it our own, and be a little bit creative as well, because sometimes with teaching it can all just become a little bit tick box at times, and there's having that opportunity to be creative and to find a text that you think, yeah, my class, that group of children I've got this year, I know will really engage with that text. They're really going to enjoy that access strategy, the access strategy I've got planned. So for example, today I was teaching my year 3 class, and we've got our units about building effect through structure. That's our concept for that unit, and we're going to think about the end goal is essentially to write a food review. So my access strategy with them was to show them a little snippet of the Great British Bake Off, and we were looking at what the judges were going to say. And so then we were pulling out the language that the judges were using. And one of the strategies that's really effective, other than obviously the clip itself was exciting to them, but a really good one that I've used with various classes, with the Year 6 class and with this with this class, is the idea of a connotation, the connotation river, the strategy that you've come up with, Bob, and thinking about those links. So it was the word unusual. So the judge said this is an unusual taste, or unusual texture, I think it was. So initially we had to discuss what the word texture meant. So that's kind of 5 minutes of the lesson talking back and forth about texture and where we've heard the word texture before, and learning the words. And then we were talking about the word unusual and what links that had for them. Where have you heard the word unusual? How would you feel if you did a piece of artwork and I said, oh, that's unusual? And so the judge was using it in a positive sense. It was an unusual texture, but it was one they enjoyed. So again, it's discussing language, and language is really central to our planning. We have with our units, we very much make sure that vocabulary, questioning, commenting remains central. So we actually have an oracy box within our planning where oracy activities are planned, as alongside the reading, writing, and grammatical areas. Yeah,
I was going to say, actually, with both of you, the learning dialogues between pupil and teacher, pupil and pupil, in a way, the bits that we can't model here sound like they've been the most important. The ways in which these words and the connotation and the context of the language has been explored. One of my favorite words is explored. It sounds as if the level of interest and enjoyment goes up, but the level of remembering and understanding goes up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Even for another one of the strategies for the vocabulary has been that has been really effective, I use with them, is the continuum line. So you put two ideas at either end of your continuum, and you pick out a phrase or a word from the text, and it's brilliant. You can plan a whole lesson from your short extract potentially around a phrase. So for example, we've got a Year 1 class, their plan is their focus text is The Lost Wolf. They are then, one of their activities towards the end of the session is to look at lots of the different link texts that have come up and to fit those link texts on the continuum of good to bad, and how the wolf was portrayed in the different texts that they've come across. And was he more good? Was he more bad? And how was he portrayed in these different texts? But then again, it could be used with Year 6. So I've used the continuum line. We had fascination at one end and threat at another. And this was through Amelia Edwards. This was your unit through Amelia Edwards, The Phantom Coach. And we were looking at the meeting of the characters and the description that the narrator gave of the room. And so all the objects that the character was coming across, where would they place those objects on this continuum line? And again, the discussion around the vocabulary that they were coming across was just brilliant. Because you get the children to justify it. Why are you putting that? Why do you feel that's more threatening than fascinating? And they have to justify that.
I absolutely love it, and it could well be that we've got people logged in who teach older pupils, and I'd make the case for a continuum line. I'm thinking off the top of my head, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, to what extent is Alec d'Urberville, does Alec d'Urberville destroy Tess, or is he the one who tries to protect her? Discuss. Where are you on the continuum line, or does Angel Clare betray Tess? Where's the evidence? Finding the evidence, a very proactive activity. I'm not sure. A lot of the things we've said here, concepts and building knowledge steps, so that it's challenging each time, but the brain can handle it. Well, I appreciate that in my learning. I'm not sure, although in many ways I'm talking about primary and transition into Key Stage 3. I think many of these things are still needed when they get older to support access and teaching. Or if it's just simply the teacher knows stuff, teacher's going to tell you, get it, write it down, we'll quiz it and have a test. There are going to be some pupils there lost. And some pupils also not excited.
Well,
Um,
I definitely think as well that the staff, as we're planning and they're going away, are learning themselves, because they're thinking about, they're having to think
yeah,
about,
yeah,
when you have a radial questioning, you have this big question that you're using. They're having to think about what their success criteria is going to be, and they might not have that the very first time they deliver that lesson. They might have
mm,
to build and improve their success criteria as they're teaching that through over time.
mm,
So
mm.
yeah, definitely
Yeah,
learning
great stuff. I'm
going on.
looking at the watch and probably
Yeah, sorry.
better bring our discussion to an end. You've both been really fascinating. Thank you so much. I am literally going to whip through. I had these overview links because I think they're going to interest some people. And I'll be very quick. Article from Nate. Link there. I don't know if people are taking screenshots or whether we can get them the slides, or in fact, if you email me, I can send out the slides. That's article for Nate. Those are the books. That's an article by a teacher that a lot of people have enjoyed, also from a Nate magazine. That's a podcast with Tiny Voice Talks, where I ask searching questions that will go a lot further. The free videos, another blog, the equity and excellence mission statement, if you like. I love what Michelle from Hartlepool said at this huge conference I spoke at. After 14 years of teaching, I was finally starting to see a change in their attitude towards writing. That is something we're hearing often. If you can persuade people to move to a challenging text to quality writing feel, you really can improve their enjoyment and therefore the pupils. So there's some extra links there for you, and we'll answer any questions if we have any. Oh, thank you for circulating the slides. Just looking. I'll put everything is through my website, so let's put that in again. Do shout out any questions if you want to. Right, there we go. So you'll find most things through there. But yeah, do fire away, folks, if there's something you want to ask now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hi.
can.
We've just started kind of our journey exploring opening doors, and I've had a bit of time staff and been exploring your wonderful book.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things that's been ticking away a little bit is I'm very sold on it. But it's the idea of concepts, and I just wondered whether you've got any schools you're working with that have kind of sat down and really, I mean, it's a difficult thing, isn't it? Because it starts with the text, obviously, and there's that organic aspect of what concepts come through that text, and you know, when you read a text, you think, oh yes, that's tension is what I want to explore here. But I guess without spoiling that, if you like, almost looking at mapping some of those perhaps some key concepts across school and considering that progression. So the one I always come back to for an example is kind of characterization, you know, the notion of the vivid characterization, because obviously what we might ask Key Stage 1 children to explore in a text, we want to see that by year 5, 6, they've almost got this toolkit of how you can characters and you know, so I just wondered if you've got any schools that have reflected on that or done any work around that.
email me. I'll find a school that you can either and
Oh,
on your email you can tell me where you are, and I can find a school either
Yeah,
to visit or link with.
that would
So
be
we
awesome.
can,
Yeah.
if you just email me, that's fine. Odd little thing. I love the way you said vivid characterization, because I mean I'm learning all the time. You never, absolutely never
Sorry,
stop learning. The older I
that's-
get, the less I know,
Mm.
because actually the bigger the body of knowledge you're aware of that you haven't got a clue about. So yeah, it's English is big. It's a big subject, and it can be easy to feel lost. There's aspects of English I'm a lot weaker on. There's aspects of English I'm stronger on. That'll probably be everybody. So first of all, it's like, let's just learn together and enjoy it. But you said, I like the way you said vivid
Yeah.
characterization, because I am finding where people are just
Mm.
using characterization, they're just labeling again. Or
Yeah.
if they just use personification, they just tick a personification. But if they use personification for meaning, or effective personification, or vivid characterization, that's
Mhm.
encouraging the learners to really go a bit deeper into how the words work, not in a sort of old-fashioned just dissecting style, but with real joy for language. So that is sort of one big bit of advice. And as you rightly said, you can repeat the concepts, but the texts get harder, the objective feel gets harder. But of course, there's going to be people in university right now, talking about epic style,
Mm.
but not in the same way that I modelled it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you so much. That's great. I will do.
Thank you. Thank you. Do email me, please. Love to hear
Yeah.
more.
I will do. Thanks, Bob.
Anybody else? We know time is getting on. Yeah, I think Becky's saying we may have to come to a close. So, shall we close there, Becky?
thank you. Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt the flow, but
No,
we
that's
finished past.
absolutely, yeah.
Do contact Bob, as he's very warm and open and willing to answer your questions. And thank you from me to everyone who's come along this afternoon, and to Matt and to Uzma and to Bob, just for sharing your experiences, and particularly the writing of the pupils, which yeah, it's just really striking. And I love that the note that we finished on was talking about joy. We don't talk about joy
Oh,
often
we've
enough.
got to. We've
So
got
thank
to.
you for
Words,
that.
language, literature, and it starts young. And these great people like Matt and Usama, they're doing such a fantastic job, because through the more technical sides of it all, you are promoting enthusiasm and a love of reading and writing. That's going to do the job for everyone, isn't it? If you can promote that.
Thank you so much. I'll wish a good evening to everyone, and I hope to see you at another of our events soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you,
A
Becca.
wave to someone I know there.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.